Most of us inherit our religion the same way we inherit family debt, or even our last name. We spend our lives defending a position um, that we didn't start, or harboring hatred to people we didn't choose to hate, simply because of this hand me down habit of thinking that it's the only thing that's keeping us moral. But what if the system you're defending is the very thing that colonized your spirit? Let's talk about it. Hi, welcome back to Buyer Fires. This is a space dedicated to the Sanctuary of Hecate Brimo. I'm Reverend Sosanna Olson. I'm the founder of the Sanctuary, and today we are going to talk about what I like to call the Stockholm Syndrome of spirituality. This is the battle of moral agency. We're going to talk about resetting your own internal compass. And then, if you stay with me, we're going to look at the history that they didn't teach you, the archetypes that we can change and reclaim our own active happiness. Now, you're going to see me looking down from time to time, looking at my laptop. So it's here. I'm going to lift it up for you. I'm looking at my laptop. I'm neurodivergent. I use notes as an anchor. It's a way to make sure I stay on track and don't wander off into a tangent. I want to make sure I'm staying on topic today and focus on the information that you came here to hear about. So let's get started. Oh, wait, before we talk about that, as I talk about going off on tangents, I wanted to share a new piece that I'm working on. So here it is. Let me just hold that up for you. This is the three-headed animal version of the goddess Hecate. In the center, we have the boar. Over here we have the dog, and over here we have the horse. Hopefully that's that's obvious from the sculpting. I'm working on this one. It needs to be sanded still and then painted, but I'm really pleased with the way it's turning out. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now let's get back to what we're here to talk about. So one of my favorite quotes is from Arthur C. Clarke. He stated, "One of the greatest tragedies of mankind is that morality has been hijacked by religion." So if we think about that for a second, if we think about what's going on in the world today, we have, I mean, how many wars have been fought over religion? Everything from, colonization, all of those things are coming from my sky daddy is better than your sky daddy. That's one of my favorite quotes. Another quote is by Penn Jillette. And I'm going to give you the G-rated version of this quote, but you're certainly welcome to look it up. When asked, he was asked the question, without God, what stops you from stealing all you want? And he replied that he already steals as much as he wants to, and the amount that he wants to is zero. And he used a different word in there. So I don't want to use that word because of the pings that I might get, but that's what he's talking about, right? Goodness isn't a religious product. Okay. We're not good. If you're good because someone's threatening you with punishment if you don't be good, are you really good? I don't think so. Most of us don't avoid hurting people because of that policing, right? We avoid it because we don't want to cause pain. We don't have it. It's innate within us. If you look at children that are playing together, for the most part, if one person is without, they will give, right? That's just their nature. Because in us, it's our nature to have empathy and to care about other people. Now, where does the break start? Where does it stop being innate and become religion? So if you think about, many of us inherit our religion just like we inherit debt, right? Well, it's like spiritual muscle memory. Why do you go to the church that you go to? Why do you practice the religion you practice? All of those things are typically related to what you were born in. And even if we're not committed to it, if someone asks us, this is what the religion we follow because our parents did, um, there's when you think about the harm that's done in the name of religion. I mean, first of all, slavery, right? The Christian Bible was used to continue the justification, and still is today, to persecute those that are different than the main group. Slavery was if your I saw a meme, it said, if your religion tells you how you should treat your slaves, then you need to find a different religion because we shouldn't have slaves. Um, so when we think about that, we think about what does being religious make someone a good person? Well, we know it absolutely does not. Yet across the United States, in states like Arkansas, Mississippi, Texas, and I'll include some of that in the description, even North Carolina, have statutes in place that say you cannot run for office. You may not be able to be a witness if you're not a person who can accept and profess that there is a supreme being or a supreme creator. So, you know, technically, they list, even in North Carolina, they list that people who are non-believers they're just like a criminal. They're not trustworthy. Now, granted, I'm paraphrasing that quite a bit, but certainly you can look it up. And then we have the case in 1961 where it's Torquata versus Watkins that said these religious tests were unconstitutional. You should not need to prove this. But yet we still have all of these laws in the books. When we watch people being sworn in for religious office, or I'm sorry, no, Freudian slip, being sworn in for public office or being sworn in on a witness stand, they always put their hand on a Bible. Which is problematic when you think about it. But they're not the only culture who's done this. So if we look at the historic culture, the Incan sun monopoly, right? The Incan tribes held the hostage the other sun idols from conquered tribes. So they would all have to come to worship the single place, their version of the sun idol. The Council of Braga as well. They banned lighting torches at crossroads to break people's connection to the land spirits. You couldn't have your own spirit. You had to use theirs. Same day with Catholicism. You're not allowed to speak directly to God. You are talking through a priest. You are talking through the head of the church in order to have that relationship. So when we think about that, we have to think about, what are we doing? What are we doing now? Are we a follower? Are you someone who's following this particular religion because your ancestors told you to, because your mother did this, your father did this, however great back? I see plenty of memes. Well, I'm a descendant of a witch. Okay. I'm descendant of the Celtic tribes. Okay. So what? Right? If we look back of us, all of us are children of Africa. I don't see a lot of you embracing that. Sorry, that was a bit aggressive, but you see where I'm going with that. So when you're looking at what you're doing, what you're choosing, you want to be sure that what it is sits right with you, right? You don't want to take something at face value. There's a benefit in looking across several groups. Now, as I've mentioned several times on this channel, I am not a follower of Hecate in that I believe that she ever walked the earth, or that any of the gods, any god at all, is ever real. I do not believe that. Okay. I am a person who believes in energy. I believe in spirit. And I believe that we created these archetypes. We created, all of these different images and things that we wanted to be, right? We wanted to understand what was going on in our lives, or to embrace or call in that energy in order to become that personification of, whether it's strength or wisdom, or the ability to harvest your crops on time. I mean, it goes back to the ghost in the machine. As people without technology or without science, we were of the belief that spiritual energy, if we made the gods mad, our crops would die. Now we know today that's not the case, right? Some of us some of us know it's not the case. Others still believe that gay people cause hurricanes, so there's that. And just for clarity's sake, I am not one of those people. So when you think about what energy you want to represent, or what you want to put forth in the world, it's okay to choose different archetypes from different pantheons. You know, you could follow. I mean, I believe I have written here that in the Hellenistic period, many people didn't choose just one god; they were multiple gods. Right? This was multiple energy. So you don't need to commit yourself to one specific path in order to make yourself a better person. And you certainly don't need religion at all to be a better person. I think that more harm has been done in the name of religion than really anything else. Um, so, are you sovereign? Are you separate? Have you cut yourself out of that hierarchy that's been pushed down to you from that generational, for lack of a better word, abuse, in my opinion? One thing you can do is, does my path? So I'm going to just give you a checklist here. Does my path require me to dehumanize anyone else? Right? And that's what the comment I was making earlier. If your Bible told you, or if your religious text tells you how to treat your slaves, does what you do in your path make others? Does it harm others? The next one would be, am I following this path because it brings me peace, or because I'm afraid of disappointing my family? I'm certainly not trying to create havoc at the Christmas dinner table, but think about it for a second. Is this something that you really feel, like is important to you, or are you only following this because it is something that your family does? The next question would be, does my system encourage me to ask why, or does it tell me that questioning is a sign of weakness? Learning and education is never weakness. If you are in some sort of religious, I don't know, structure that tells you shouldn't be learning, then I would check somewhere else. I would look for something else to follow, because this is not a sign. Education is never a sign of weakness. The last thing that I would call out for your sovereignty test would be, if I were the last person left on earth, would I still practice these virtues? Is this something you would still do? So when I wake up in the morning, when my feet hit the floor, the first thing I think about is positivity, being positive, being strong, and not harming others, right? That's what's important to me. And I believe I would still do that if I were the only person on earth. It would be quite a lonely situation, but I would. So true morals, right? True morals don't need a sermon, right? True morality, it doesn't need a sermon. One thing that makes me so crazy, is every time I um, go to the blessing box and I'm filling the blessing box up, other people donate, which I appreciate. I think it's wonderful that we're providing for those that are less fortunate in our neighborhood. But I'll find these stacks of tracts of basically Christian literature, stuffed in the box. Hungry people don't need a pamphlet, okay? They need a sandwich. Let's just be pretty direct. I remember when I was very young, I had a child that I was taking care of, and there was no food, and I had to go to these religious organizations in order to get food at their food pantries. And so many of them required that I sit down and pray with them in order to get a bag of groceries, some beans and some sugar. And I had to sit down and submit and claim Jesus as my savior. Yeah, that's bollocks. Okay. That's just not okay. I don't think that you should hold food over someone's head in order to further your own religious drive. So that was just, that's just not okay. Right. That's okay. I would digress. Right. Um, but true morality, right? True morality means that you're doing things that are right now, right here, and for people now. You're not trying to do the good thing to get into heaven. I attended a Free Will Baptist church as a preteen up until my teenage years. And they convinced me that I was poor because I was not blessed by God. I lived in a trailer. I didn't have food. My parents were very working class. They were, we were on public assistance, and all of those things they told me was because I wasn't blessed by God. And in order to be blessed, I needed to put money in the offering plate. So I remember crawling under trailers and getting bottles out. I also sold those bottles to buy cigarettes, but I then took money and put it in the offering plate as well, thinking that it would help my family be in a better position in the future, right? We need to stop worrying about what's happening in the future. We need to worry about what's happening today. There are hungry people today. There are people who are living outside today without anything covering their head. They have no access to care. And it's not, I don't care whose fault it is. I don't care if they're drug abusers or if they're, someone who is, um, you know, what would be called downtrodden or the less than. I don't believe that for a second. Everybody deserves food. Okay, everybody, and that's important to me. I think we're too worried about. Some people are too worried about getting into heaven instead of taking care of what's going on now. And that reminds me, if you've not seen The Color Purple, go watch it. You're gonna love it. This reminds me of Miss Sophia when she's in the field talking to uh, talking about Mister. She tells Miss Seeley, she says, "You ought to bash in Mister's head and think about heaven later." To me, I was like, "That's right, right? We need to worry about what's happening today. We need to focus on reducing suffering now and stop worrying so much about what's going on in those pearly gates." I digress just a little bit there, but I hope you stayed with me for that point. Sovereignty isn't something that we're looking at just to feel empowered, right? You need that sovereignty. You need to be able to claim your own spiritual place without just taking what's been pushed on you, whether it be by a king like Longshanks, or I'm sorry, uh, push down on it and saying you must worship, whether the Christians and the Catholics are blessing trees, I should say Catholics are blessing trees to convert pagans, whether this religion has been pushed down on you by an oppressor, right, much like colonization, or if this is something that you were just born into, right? I go to this church because my mom did. You really need to think about, you need your religious sovereignty. What do you need to do in order to feel right where you are? And that's one of the reasons that I continue my work with the Blessing Box, for my sovereignty, for my peace of mind, and for, I don't know, it just helps me feel like I'm giving back. It helps me feed myself when I was that young child and didn't have any food on the table. So that's going to be our chat for today on that. Um, I'm going to pull some cards now. I think let's use the River Witch Oracle today. So the River Witch Oracle is a deck that I created. Don't forget your hair magic. It's a deck that I created to pay homage to the spirituality of the rural South. The rural South, of course, and actually the entire country, was built on the backs of enslaved people from Africa. They built this nation. And much of what we have today, probably all of what we have today, would not be what it is without the work that these people were forced and the terror that they were endure and still endure today. I think that our Black and brown citizens are probably the most targeted. And of course, our LGBT people of color as well. So this deck is focused on the energy and the magic and the presence of those Black and brown people in this area. It also includes the Native people, the Tuscarora, that lived on this property and owned this property before I did. Ooh. All right, so I'm going to pull 3 cards today. We're going to start with this one. Oh, good card. This is Quilt. So I'm going to hold this up for you. The quilt is community, creativity, and weaving stories through time. Talk about a perfect card for what we're talking about today. When you're looking back at your history, you're looking back at, how you are, who you are. Are you a replica of what was there, or are you someone who's creating their own path? Weaving your community. Be sure that you're a part of your community. If you don't have something in your area to give back, create it, right? Be the hero, be the change you want to be. You can also look to contributing to other things that's people who do work that is like-minded. I think there's, if we go back to the Noble Eightfold Path and we start thinking about, right action, right speech, those things, this falls right in line with that. You want to surround yourself with people who are and think the way you want to or like to think. And we're not talking about speaking in a bubble or what is it, a sounding chamber or whatever the terminology is. What I'm talking about is action breeds action. So if you want to be someone of action, you need to surround yourself with people of action and become that change you want to see. So that's our first card. Our second card, is the Puppet. This is one of my favorite cards from this deck. The Puppet is about intent, connection, and responsibility. Again, great card for this talk. When we're talking about your intention, it's when you get up in the morning and you focus on what you are going to put forth in this world. When you lay your head down at night, can you sign your name at the bottom of the day and say, I did everything I could do in order to be a great person today? You want to connect with other people and you want to claim your responsibility. If you are going to put out energy, own it. This is my responsibility. This is my action. That's going to be very important for this card. And our last card for today, I'm pulling all the good ones today. This one is Grandmother. So I'm going to hold this one up. Is it? We don't know. See, there's 3 women on this card. This is a mother-daughter, mother-daughter-child, 3 generations. We don't know for sure. But this is about wisdom, nurture, and timeless love. This card reminds me so much of my grandmother because I feel that she was one of the most nurturing people in my life. And I'm sure you have someone like that. So when we think about that energy, we think about that someone, the elders in our life who are often tossed aside. They're not valued. Right now, when you think about, if a woman shows the least little sign of aging, she's immediately tossed to the side. We don't value them as much as we should. And when we see this card in our pull, we want to honor that wisdom and that nurture and that timeless love that we have around us. So those are our cards for today. I'm going to hold them up for you. So those are our 3 cards. If you're interested in a personal reading from this deck, or if you're interested in actually buying the deck, you can find them on my new website, hecatebrimo.org. I have moved almost completely out of Wix. I have a few books over there that I'm still re-editing. I'm just revising everything from the website and putting it on the new location. But you can find this deck. You can find my Crossroads Oracle deck, and you can find some clay that I've made there, as well as some other things that I use to help raise money for the Blessing Box of Goldsboro. The Blessing Box of Goldsboro is a set of boxes. They're little pink and purple boxes that are placed in the corners across the county. I have one that's down by the Habitat for Humanity on downtown Goldsboro that I've sponsored. And I go and on the dark moon, as part of my DIPN, I will fill the box with food in order to give back. So all the monies that I collect from there or on my eBay site, I use to buy things for that. So you can certainly support us that way. I also want to do a direct shout out. I've got 3 regular sponsors that donate money every week. So that comes through on my PayPal. You can certainly do that as well. All of those are greatly appreciated. I do appreciate that. You just don't know how much it means to me. So that's our call and our total meeting for today. I'm going to include some references to those state laws in the comments. If you have anything you'd like to add, I'm going to put a pinned comment in. Join the discussion. I want to hear what you think about, what are you doing? Are you defending are you defending an inherited conflict? Are you simply following something because your parents told you to? Let's talk about it. I want you to have an absolutely glorious today on this first day of spring, and I will talk to you soon.